Great burgers at home don't need to be difficult. If you've got the time, inclination and equipment to grind your own specially selected cuts of beef and make your own buns from scratch, that's awesome. You should absolutely do that. But for me, unless it's a special occasion, I'm going to be using cheap, simple supermarket ingredients with a few tips and tricks to turn them into a great burger. Not a perfect burger, but certainly above average, and a whole lot better than you're likely to get from your average fast food joint. So we're going to make a big juicy beef patty, our own not-so-secret sauce, some fresh salad elements, and bring that all together with a bun that's been toasted to perfection. Let's get snacking. So tip number 1, straight off the bat, roasted garlic in the burger sauce. Just take a couple of cloves of garlic, throw them in some foil with a drizzle of olive oil, and chuck them in a preheated oven at 180 Celsius, and try not to forget that they're in there while we prep the salad ingredients. The garlic should take around 30 to 40 minutes to get nice and roasty. So for salad, I've got some nice crisp lettuce that's fresh out of my garden. I'm going to shred this fairly finely. The stem down the center tends to be a little bit crunchy, so I'm just going to split these leaves in half. That way we maintain a little bit of that crunch, but not too much. And then I'm going to stack these on top of each other and give them a nice fine slice. Then moving those to the side and moving on to the onion. I think a good burger really needs onion. It complements the beef flavor really well. Fresh raw onion can be a little bit bitey, so I've got a trick that I'll show you later to take away a little bit of that bite. I only need enough to make one burger today, so I'm just going to take a cheek off of this onion and finely slice it. Surprisingly, the direction that you slice your onion can have a pretty big impact on the way that it tastes. The pungency of onions is caused by a reaction that happens when you break the onion cells. The onion cells run pole to pole, parallel with the lines that you can see on the onion. Cutting them crossways will burst more cells, so you'll get more pungency. Cutting them along the cells will rupture fewer cells, and you'll get a milder flavour. So I'm going to cut this pole to pole in line with those cells. Then I'm going to pull apart all the layers of onion, just to make sure that everything's in nice even pieces with no big chunks. Then we'll move those to the side, and let's talk pickles. We're going to have a big, juicy, beefy patty, and that's going to be pretty rich. The salad and the sauce are going to go some way towards balancing that out, but a nice acidic pickle will help to break through some of that richness. I made these pickles myself. If you're not a big fan of pickles, I would recommend trying to make some yourself. The great thing about making your own pickles is that you can fine-tune the flavour to suit your tastes. I'll put a link to a video demonstrating this pickle recipe down in the description. And now for the all-important burger sauce. Generally speaking, most burger sauces are really just combinations of other sauces, and this one's no exception. You can mix and match the quantities of these based on personal taste, but I think this particular combination of condiments makes a really nice sauce. So I'm going in with equal parts ketchup and American-style yellow mustard, a dash of hot sauce. This one's particularly hot, so I'm only using a small amount. A quantity of mayonnaise roughly equal to the amount of mustard and ketchup combined. A small dash of pickle juice just to increase the acidity and add a little bit of that pickle flavour. And then our secret ingredient, the roasted garlic. By this point, the garlic should be soft enough that you can just squeeze it out of its skin like toothpaste out of a tube. Delicious garlicky toothpaste. Then mix all that together till it's thoroughly combined, being sure to sort of smush the garlic a little bit just to make sure that it breaks up and evenly disperses through the sauce. A good burger bun should be nice and soft and squishable. This really helps in those instances when you stack your ingredients too high and struggle to fit it in your mouth. Having a nice squishable bun helps to jam everything in. I personally like potato rolls, but this time around my supermarket didn't have any. But they did have these nice soft sesame seed buns, which will work just as well. And I do really like the extra toasty flavour that sesame seeds give. As is traditional with a burger, we're going to split the bun into 2 halves, which we will then toast in a pan in some butter. I think toasting the bun's really important. It helps to give the bun a little bit more structural integrity. The sauce and meat juices don't seem to make it fall apart quite as quickly if you've got a bit of a crusty layer of toast there. It also adds another layer of texture because there's an extra crunch as you bite through the burger, and it also adds another level of flavour. Toasting equals flavour. When was the last time you walked into a kitchen where someone had recently made toast and didn't immediately think, wow, that smells awesome, I want some toast? That's exactly what we want for this bun. So into a pan with some hot butter, pressing down on them lightly or putting a small weight on top can help to make sure that the surface of the bun makes contact with the surface of the pan. This is particularly useful if your cut hasn't been perfectly straight, and we'll just patiently wait for these to turn a nice even golden brown. Now that our bun and salad ingredients are prepared, it's on to the main event, the beef. There's a lot of debate around the best blend for burgers. A lot of people believe that the best blend for burgers is a mixture of chuck and sirloin with a ratio of about 20 to 30% fat to beef. We don't have the luxury of being quite that picky. I don't have a meat grinder, and even if I did, I'm not sure I'd go to that much effort all that often. It's a nice thing to do if you can, but it's not for me, at least not today. So what am I going to use instead? This cheap, regular supermarket beef mince. Conveniently, it has a meat to fat ratio of about 80-20, give or take, which is roughly in the ballpark we're looking for, and it's probably got some chuck in it. The fact that it's also pretty cheap is just a bonus. Making your own beef patties is definitely worth it. I find the burger patties that you buy from the shops have way too much salt in them. Not only does this make them, well, quite salty, but when salt gets mixed through mincemeat, it starts to break down some of the proteins, and that turns the mincemeat from being a nice loose burger consistency to a tight, rubbery, sausage-like consistency. Also, we're not going to be adding any additional ingredients or flavouring to the beef. This is 100% beef burger. There's a lot of recipes around that include things like minced onion or sauces and flavourings, or breadcrumbs and eggs as a kind of a bulking agent and a binder, but today we're not going to need any of that nonsense. I think if you're going to have a beef burger, you want it to be a beef burger. If you're going to add eggs and breadcrumbs to minced beef, you're not making a burger anymore, you're making meatloaf. And while meatloaf sandwiches can be delicious, a beef burger is definitely what's on the menu today. Eventually this is going to get a little bit too big and awkward to handle, so at that point I'm going to put it down on a solid surface. You can put this down on a piece of parchment paper. That can help to make sure that it doesn't stick to anything and can make it a little bit easier to transfer into the frying pan, but I've not worried about that today. I like to use one hand to push down on the meat and shape the patty, while I use my other hand around the edge to make sure it stays nice and round. And we'll continue to shape this until it's still a reasonable thickness, but about 20 to 30% bigger than the bun that we're going to serve it on. This is going to shrink quite a bit during cooking as water evaporates and some of the fat starts to render out, so we want to make it a little bit bigger than the burger bun so that after it's cooked it's just the right size. It can also help to make the surface of the burger slightly concave so that the burger is actually slightly thinner in the middle than it is around the edges. The patty is going to contract and pull into itself as it hits the hot pan and starts to heat up, so making it thinner in the middle gives you a better chance of ending up with an even thickness after cooking. Otherwise it tends to end up with a big bulge in the middle. There we go, this is now looking nice and round, and yep, that looks about the right size. So now I'm going to season up this patty. I am giving this a fairly generous sprinkle of salt. This may look like quite a lot, but remember there's no salt in the patty itself, it's just going to be on the surface, so there needs to be enough salt to season the whole patty. The salt will also help the patty develop a nice brown crust as it cooks. I'm also going to add a little bit of freshly ground black pepper. Now is about the time I'm going to put a pan over a high heat and get it really nice and hot. And while that's heating up, I'm going to prepare my bun. I'm dressing up both the top and bottom bun with some of that beautiful burger sauce and spreading that around so that it's nice and even. I like to put any salad ingredients like lettuce or tomato beneath the patty on the bottom bun. It's just personal preference. I think the burger tends to be a little bit more stable and fall apart a bit less with the salad on the bottom. This is just what I like to do, but you do you. On with our tasty pickles. And the onion I'm going to leave aside for now. You'll see why in a minute. By now your pan should be really hot, and it's time to throw in the patty. If you're not using a non-stick pan, you're going to want to put a little bit of oil in first. You might want to put a bit of oil in anyway, even if you are using non-stick. It does help the heat to stay in contact with the patty more and help with browning. Because the pan I'm using is about the same size of the burger patty, I've not used oil because the fat from the burger patty is going to render out while it cooks, so the patty's actually going to be cooking in its own fat. And because there's 20% fat in this patty, there'll be plenty there to stop it from sticking, and to help it get nice and brown. And before we forget, we're going to season the second side with a little bit more salt and pepper. Now I'm going to speed this up so you can see just how much that patty shrinks during cooking. That is a lot smaller, and whoa boy, are we getting some splatter happening. But never mind, we're committed to this now. This is going to be a great burger, so cleaning off the stove afterwards is going to be worth it. And when we see a nice level of browning on the first side, we're going to carefully slip a spatula underneath, trying not to break apart the patty, and give it a flip. This is definitely going to be a well done burger. If you're grinding your own meat and you know just how fresh it is, you can probably get away with cooking it a bit less to maybe a medium, but I don't trust this supermarket beef enough to do that. And because of the roughly 80 to 20 meat to fat ratio, there'll still be plenty of fat and moisture left in this burger after cooking to keep it nice and juicy. Once the burger's flipped, that is when I pop the onions on top. This allows them to start heating through a little bit, and then when the cheese goes on top, they'll start to steam. I find that this way they partially but not fully cook. That way they're a little bit softer, but you still get a crunch, and a little bit of that harsh raw onion flavour has been mellowed out, so you still get a little bit of bite, but not too much. Then pop on 2 slices of cheese of your choice. Personally, I really like processed cheese for burgers. Nothing else seems to melt quite the same. I find a harder cheese doesn't really melt properly, it just kind of sweats and turns translucent and isn't very appealing, whereas this processed cheese will turn nice and melty and gooey. And once that's looking sufficiently melted, we're ready for assembly. I like to take it off the heat before the cheese has completely melted. I find that if I leave it on there for too long, the cheese ends up completely turning to liquid and I end up losing half of it. Now gently lowering that patty down onto the bun and carefully slipping it off. Then crown it with the top bun and give it a gentle push down so that everything holds together. And you can see that even though this patty has been cooked to well done, it's still really nice and juicy. I think you'd be hard pressed to make a better burger at home without going to significantly more effort. I'd really encourage you to have a crack at this recipe at home and let me know in the comments how your burger stacks up against your local takeout joint. I'd love to hear. Burgers tend to pair really nicely with beers, so today I'm matching this with a fresh, hoppy, low alcohol pale ale. And that is a really quite good burger. The patty's juicy and really beefy, the cheese is nice and melty, the onions have just the right amount of bite, the lettuce adds some freshness, and the sauce just ties everything together. For something that's made with cheap, simple supermarket ingredients, and with no particularly complicated techniques, this has turned out really well. If you've appreciated this video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and maybe leave me a comment. If you think I could have done better with this burger, then feel free to hit dislike and let me know what I can improve. As always, I'd encourage you to check out some of my other videos and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future recipes or videos. And happy snacking! Oh, what a mess. Totally worth it though.